Ladies and gentlemen, tonight the topic of my discussion is India's attack, alert, and the shadows of a secret pact, questions of treason, trust, and triumph for Pakistan. In light of the recent military escalation between India and Pakistan, a critical clause of the United Nations Charter, Article 51, has entered global discourse. It affirms, nothing in the present charter shall impair the inherent right of individual or collective self-defense if an armed attack occurs against a member of the United Nations until the Security Council has taken measures necessary to maintain international peace and security. That's UN Charter Article 51. India's Foreign Minister, Dr. Jaishankar, during a recent press briefing, referenced this very principle while justifying India's actions. According to a report from The Hindu dated May 14, 2025, Jaishankar claimed that India had informed Pakistan of its intention to strike what it labeled as emphasized the terrorist cells within Pakistan's territory would be hit. He emphasized that no civilian or military installations would be targeted, implying that the action was preemptive, surgical, and within the bounds of international law. However, this statement triggered a firestorm in India's Lok Sabha, the Indian Parliament, where opposition leader Rahul Gandhi publicly challenged Jaishankar's disclosure. He demanded a parliamentary investigation, calling the act of sharing operational details with the adversaries an unforgivable breach of national security, and questioned whether such forewarning endangered Indian troops. Gandhi's pointed interrogation implied that Jaishankar's statement could amount to an act of treason, a rare acquisition from a mainstream leader in such high-stake matters. The question now is, who in Pakistan received the information? Ladies and gentlemen, this raises alarming questions from the Pakistani perspective. If India did indeed forewarn Pakistan or Pakistani leadership, who in Islamabad received this information? The Indian Foreign Minister, according to democratic protocol, would not bypass his civilian counterpart. This suggests that Mr. Ishaq Dar, Pakistan's Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister, may have been the recipient of this information. This possibility is reinforced by a press conference held by Pakistan's Information Minister Ataullah Tarar on May 15, 2025, where he confidently declared that an Indian attack was expected within 72 hours. His claim, yet cryptic, tone revealed an awareness of an imminent military operation, perhaps conveyed through a confidential diplomatic channel. Such precision suggests a possible covert understanding between the civilian governments of both the nations. If so, was Pakistan's military leadership informed or kept uninformed? All available signs suggest they were not. The speed, scale, and sophistication of Pakistan's military response, including electromagnetic countermeasures, cyber jamming, and the neutralization of advanced Indian jets, strongly implied that the armed forces were neither passive nor complicit. This suggests a disconnect between Pakistan's civilian government and its military, echoing previous historical failures, particularly the lead up to the 1971 dismemberment of Pakistan. However, this time Pakistan's armed forces changed the outcome. That military response redefined the battlefield. The recent successes of the Pakistan Air Force over Indian airspace represent a strategic reversal not witnessed in 5 decades. Pakistan not only downed multiple Indian Rafale fighters, but also showcased its use of non-kinetic warfare tactics, such as electronic warfare and cyber jamming, demonstrating technological parity, if not superiority. The military's swift and measured response prevented any potential gains the Indian BJP government sought to achieve, both militarily and politically. Since then, Indian analysts have expressed outrage and humiliation, accusing Prime Minister Modi's administration of diminishing India's military prestige, weakening morale, and causing electoral harm. Now, the intriguing question here is Nawaz Sharif's silence and questionable role of civilian elites. What struck observers most was the deafening silence from Pakistan's mainstream political leadership, particularly Nawaz Sharif and the PMLN. Not a single statement of condemnation, support for the armed forces, or diplomatic protest was made. This silence suggests either calculated political evasion or worse, an implicit approval of the operation, shared in advance by Jaishankar. Given Nawaz Sharif's controversial history of prioritizing foreign appeasement over national dignity, his silence appears damning. Some political observers in Islamabad are starting to question whether Pakistan's civilian leadership made a secret pact with India to allow attacks on so-called terror gangs, aiming to avoid war while maintaining their fragile hold on power. Now, this is important as a moment for military victory, political accountability, and diplomatic renewal. This episode uncovers 3 uncomfortable truths. 1. India's diplomatic outreach to civilian elites in Pakistan has created division, jeopardizing Pakistan's sovereignty. 2. Pakistan's military has once again proven to be the ultimate guardian of national security rather than its parliament or cabinet. 3. Pakistan's democracy remains hindered, unable to challenge dubious foreign policy decisions or hold its leaders accountable. India's own parliamentary system, despite becoming increasingly authoritarian under Modi's Brahminical democracy, is still active enough to hold Jaishankar accountable. Pakistan's parliament, in contrast, remains rubber stamped, deaf to treason and mute before victory. Now that Pakistan has established its military dominance, it must reform its political institutions. The Foreign Office must proactively counter the misleading narratives surrounding Indian democracy, highlighting India's history of state-sponsored violence, the Gujarat genocide, the murder of Sikh leader Hardeep Singh Najjar in Canada, and the systemic oppression in Kashmir and Manipur. Finally, I must say that India's misadventure has become Pakistan's moment of reckoning. The world must be informed that India is not a true democracy, but an RSS-led theocracy disguised as a democratic entity. At the same time, Pakistan must reclaim its democratic voice, not just its military might or pride. Now is the moment for Pakistan's diplomacy to make an impact, much like its military has, with precision, preparation, and purpose. Thank you.